Commissioner Rob Manfred, brings up the billions of dollars that the players could have had from some magic pot that I don't know where that came from. So to continue the salary cap discussion, why do you think that we're in a position here where it's become more of a push from the league side? And the big follow up for me is, are they able to share more money as a league without anything having to do with the salary cap? If the biggest complaint is, hey, the Pirates, or bring up another team that doesn't spend much, would spend all of this money if we had a salary cap, why don't they just help them out with revenue sharing to distribute their piece of the pot a little bit better?
Yeah, a couple of things, Scott. First of all, on revenue sharing, they can't change the way they share revenues without negotiating with us. That's something that's been collectively bargained for, decades, and including in the last round of bargaining. So if they want to share more revenues, that's not something they can do by themselves without negotiating with us. Um, but there are things you can do, to the extent we have some teams that don't want to spend. There are things you can do to incentivize teams to spend. We proposed some of them last time. The league wasn't interested. Last time in bargaining, we proposed numerous changes to the revenue sharing system. We said, look, it doesn't make sense right now. You're giving all this money to certain teams, and they're not spending it, and they're basically, putting the money away. And what we heard from the league was, we don't disagree on some of these things, but we can't change it. We won't change it. I mean, literally last time the league told us we will not change revenue sharing, period. Um, and they didn't. They never wavered from that. Now, this time, it may be different. This time there are reasons to believe the league may be more open to that discussion, but you could make changes. It would have to be negotiated. In terms of, the cap, they we're always asked about a floor, right? So, well, wouldn't it be good to have a floor? And just to be clear on a couple of things, we're not against a floor. If they came to us and said, "We'll give you a floor," my response would be, "Great. What does it come with?" And historically, it has always come with a cap. In the last round of negotiations, we had an exchange with one of their owners who literally said any amount in a floor would have to be paid for dollar somewhere else. So when they talk about a floor, what they're really talking about is just taking money from somewhere else and giving it to a different team. What they call a zero sum game. Just they're talking about converting it to a system where nobody can spend more than an amount. Now, again, there are other ways to incentivize teams, whether through a floor or a soft floor or having the right incentives. And again, we're always open-minded about things like that. But to be clear, the league's conception of a floor has always been, we're going to take money from a team that wants to spend it and give it to a team that doesn't want to spend it and somehow make them spend it. But at the end of the day, you're transforming it into a system where nobody can fully ever be competitive. Nobody can, can compete. Nobody can. It's really the opposite of competition. Salary cap. It's really what it is. Really, is a form of collusion. For years there was collusion and trying to figure out ways to collude. Well, if you have a caste system, you don't have to collude because it is collusion. Nobody can compete to put the best team on the field, on any given day. So, those are just some things to keep in mind about a cap system. And another thing, I apologize, doesn't really go to your question, but one of the things I think people don't appreciate about that kind of system is individual guaranteed contracts. You really can't have them in the cap systems the way our players have them in baseball. In football, this is most obvious. I mean, every free agent period is like a bloodbath. They're cutting players at all levels, Pro Bowl players, middle class players, to try and squeeze in a salary for a quarterback. Even the quarterbacks they go to continuously and say, "Oh, would you take less so we could sign this guy?" Very few contracts in football are fully guaranteed. In basketball and hockey, they have escrow. Escrow means your contract is not really guaranteed. And in fact, there was an article just a few days ago about basketball. Their players, because the revenues didn't meet projections, their players had to give back $500 million almost of their guaranteed salaries. So, that's there are other things that come along with a cap system it's not just a math problem. Like, well, here's how much you're getting now. Here's how much you would get. It undermines guarantees. It erodes guarantees, freedom of movement, freedom to structure contracts, freedom to do early extensions. All of those things are things that come along with a cap, things that you basically can't do anymore.
So I think it's clear. I mean, on your side, obviously, it's going to hurt the player perspective, which goes against what Commissioner Manfred just said. I'll try and do a nice and simple question and then let you run with it. And some of it you already covered, but I just feel like I need to cue it up this way. We get so much fan feedback, especially in the offseason. We need a cap. It will cure everything, right? I'm a fan of a small market team, and I'm sick of seeing the Dodgers sign all of these players. If not a cap, what is the solution to get those teams more competitive with the big juggernauts in baseball?
So a few things. I mean, first of all, when you look at the history of MLB, the recent history, and particularly when you compare it to other sports, I mean, small market teams have been successful. I grew up in New York rooting for the New York Mets. The Mets haven't won a World Series in 40 years. The Dodgers have won two in 38 years. The Yankees haven't won in 15 years. I mean, since the Mets last won a World Series, clubs that have won World Series include um, Minnesota, Kansas City, Cincinnati, St. Louis won two. Tampa seems to be doing great every year. If I'm not mistaken, this year the best record in baseball is the Detroit Tigers. The Milwaukee Brewers have been successful pretty much year after year. If you look at the standings over since like 2010, in the top, I looked at this the other day, in the top eight teams with the best record, you're going to see Cleveland, you're going to see Milwaukee, you're going to see Tampa, you're going to see Baltimore. So teams, and particularly with the expanded playoffs, I mean, you do have teams in at all levels, small market teams who are able to be competitive. In the last 25 years, the team with the top payroll has won the World Series four times. Okay, so the notion that there's a crisis, I mean, I remember, and I know you guys remember, it was only a year ago that we had Arizona and Texas in the World Series, and I think Arizona had the eighth highest payroll, and Texas had the 18th highest payroll. So I think the league is kind of weaponizing. Oh my God, the Dodgers won the World Series last year, and they signed a bunch of players. Some of those players, by the way, anybody could have signed. Um, to a fan in a small market, and of course, if you look at other sports, I mean, we're all fans of other sports. You see the Patriots who made eight straight AFC finals in a cap system. Hockey has had three repeat winners in the last few years. Baseball hasn't had a repeat winner in 26 years. So again, I think the whole premise is wrong. To fans in small markets, I would say, look, competition is crucial for us, crucial for players. Our market system that we have, it's not perfect by any means, but it relies on competition. To the extent we have teams that are unwilling to compete, it's not because the Dodgers went out and signed some players. I mean, that doesn't explain why, the Pittsburgh Pirates, for example, don't go out and spend money. It's not because the Dodgers spend money. There are other reasons why they don't do that. Now, we have proposed in the past, and I'm sure we'll propose again, incentives, ways to try and ensure that teams do spend the money they get in revenue sharing, to reward teams for being competitive. Look, we proposed last time in bargaining that small market teams that I think finished over 500 and made the playoffs would get extra draft picks. League wasn't interested. And by the way, small market teams already get massive amounts of revenue sharing. They get an equal share of central revenues. They get from what they call the commissioner's discretionary fund. And they get advantages in the system. Small market teams have built-in advantages in our system, whether with respect to international pool money or draft picks. So there are already lots of things in there that are being done to try and make sure teams can be competitive. And as I said, small market teams, many of them have proven that they can be competitive. And so, look, I think what the cap gives some owners is an all-purpose excuse. Hey, I'd like to spend more, but I can't. It's fundamentally anti-competitive. But again, we have lots of things in our system already, and things that we have proposed and will propose designed to incentivize competition and not reward teams that don't want to compete.
I have to ask this question, Manfred. Rob, I'm going to call him Rob because we've spoken on the phone and he told me to call him Rob. So Rob said that there should be a deadline for signing free agents. Why? Why does there have to be a deadline? So you can put all the pressure on the players to make them not want to, oh gosh, February 1st is the deadline, and the teams just sit back and wait, and then there's a feeding frenzy on, oh, I got to take this job for less money than this job, right? So why would we ever want, as players, a deadline on a signing for a free agency? It seems like a counterintuitive to me if you're a player.
Yeah, I mean, so that's an issue that's come up, and we've heard this from the league, and they've said it publicly. They've said, "Oh, wouldn't it be great? You know, the winter meetings would be really exciting, and look how exciting it is in the cap sports." I mean, you know, in the cap sports, it's a game of musical chairs, and yes, the teams, you know, only certain teams have room, and it gives them a lot of leverage. Um, to the extent this has come up in bargaining, you know, we've talked to our players, we've talked to agents to say, hey, how do you think this would actually work, you know, in practice? And what we've heard, I'm going to say unanimously, is that that would give more leverage to the clubs than to the players, just like you're saying. Um, yes, our free agent system drags along. Yes, there are players that have to wait until late in the game to get contracts. But again, it's been pretty unanimous. You know, when we talk to agents, for example, that having a free agent deadline would not be good for players. Now, there are other ways you could try and incentivize early signings. You could offer a team that signs during the winter meetings, you know, a compensatory draft pick or something like that, competitive balance pick. There are things that you can do, but again, the league so far has been focused on a free agent deadline, which we don't think is in the interests of players, and nor does anybody else on our side.
Kratz, we talk about HelloFresh a lot, but in the same fam is another option for you if you're looking to go on your little wellness journey or you're very picky in terms of what you're looking for ingredients wise. You can go Green Chef this summer.
And I can heat and eat because this summer I've got like 3 days where I'm not doing anything. And I'm sure those are going to get scheduled with something. Let's give me something super quick that I can heat up. The whole family's eating healthy and they're full.
Menus change weekly, 80 plus dietitian approved weekly meal options. Green Chef makes it easy to find those meals to fit your lifestyle, so go check it out. FT fam, there is an exclusive offer. Make this summer your healthiest yet with Green Chef. Head to greenchef.com/50territory and use code 50territory to get 50% off your first month, then 20% off for 2 months with free shipping. That's code 50territory at greenchef.com/50territory. Bruce, question on competitive, I would say, actions by both sides to just help draw up interest. Actually, on the trade front, this one I think is important to me. Has the union stance been that trading draft picks would be good for the game? And if so, I believe that MLB hasn't been on board, but obviously you're a better source for this. But what do you know on that front?
Yeah, I think consistently this union. I can only go back to when I started in 2018, although I'm familiar with some things that came before that. I think this union has consistently been in favor of teams being able to trade draft picks, Rule 4 draft picks. And the reason is because we actually think it would help competition. We think it would help, you know, the small market teams that have those valuable draft picks, and they should have the flexibility to trade them if it's in the best interest of the team. I think many teams would probably agree, but the league, for whatever reason, has to date been against allowing clubs the ability to trade Rule 4 draft picks. We proposed it last time; it was rejected. I can, you know, I don't want to say commit to much in the next round of bargaining, but I feel pretty confident that we would propose that again, because again, we think it's actually beneficial to competitive balance.
Bruce, I know you mentioned earlier in our conversation how owners can't talk to someone like you. They'll get in trouble, which I think is hilarious, by the way.
That's what they told me. That's what I was told.
Yeah, no, I think that's funny, and it does make sense. Hey, if you haven't had a conversation with someone, then that would probably line it up, since you've been obviously at many big MLB events. So my question is, do you think there's a lot of dissension among the ownership side when they meet and they try and come up with what they're going to throw your way? often I've heard that there's a ton of dissension and then everything has to result in a 30-0 vote so that when you come out publicly, you're like, see, we were all on the same side on every single thing. So do you feel like there's dissension on things like even the lottery, which I thought was an awesome addition and can prevent teams from tanking or at least punish them if they're just getting number one picks year after year?
I don't want to speculate about what goes on in their meetings. I wish I knew. I wish I had a source for that, but I don't. But I think it's no secret that there are. I mean, I'm sure there are divisions among their owners, whether that's along economic lines or other lines. I mean, I think we all know that there are. And hey, look, our players. I mean, we have 1,200 major leaguers and 5,000 minor leaguers, and of course, you're going to get people disagreeing, and that's healthy, and we encourage that from our players. So again, I don't doubt that takes place. I do believe that it requires a three-quarters vote on their side to approve any collective bargaining agreement. So I think if you just do the math, that means a relatively small number of teams can hold up an agreement, and that dynamic probably plays itself out. Excuse me, from time to time, but. Yeah, I probably heard some of the same things you have, but again, without first-hand information, I don't really want to speculate about their internal conversations. I mean, again, we have had. I alluded to this before. I mean, we have had recently, some owners coming out publicly and speaking in favor of a salary cap, which is, I think, a new thing. At least I can't go back to '94, but at least recently, I haven't seen that before. There was an article recently that said one owner would like to see not just a salary cap for player salaries, but for coaches' salaries and scouting salaries and technology spend, so that clubs can't outcompete each other. I thought that was interesting. So I think you are seeing more of that, but otherwise, I don't want to really speculate.
Okay. By the way, you want to know how to find out what they're talking about? Just hire ex-owners, right? Like guys that just sold the team, just bring them in. The commissioner's doing that with players, so then they get to hear what all the players are saying. So why not just hire some ex-owners on the Players Association side and say, hey, with last negotiations, we talked about XYZ, and then you'll have all the answers, Bruce. Seems like a simple solution.
We can talk about that offline.
It sounds like there's some stories there. Good luck. Fans, obviously, some of this stuff gets really granular, and fans are just like, hey, I want to watch baseball. So are you concerned when you hear the commissioner and owners talk about how it's almost a guarantee that we're going to have some type of lockout? I know Tony Clark, your colleague, has mentioned this before. The stance is, why the heck would you want to stop the sport, even in the offseason, for any period of time, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's up to the owners whether to do a lockout or not. They did it last time, and I've seen the comments that suggest that they're definitely going to do it this time. It doesn't surprise me, but it does suggest that, maybe, I mean, what are we doing then for the months before that when we're supposedly bargaining in good faith if a lockout is a sure thing? I mean, to be clear, a lockout is a weapon. It's a weapon that management uses in a labor dispute. It's their decision to lock the doors, close the camps. Last time, as you remember, during the lockout, they took all the players' pictures off the website, and so that they're not promoting the game. It's a bad thing for the game. It's a bad thing for fans. It's a bad thing, obviously, for players and their families. You hope and expect that both sides come in ready to negotiate in good faith with no preconceived notions. But the reality is that a lockout is their main economic weapon, and so certainly we'll be prepared for that if that's how it goes.
All right, Bruce, last thing. I'm a baseball fan, obviously. Grew up, played baseball. Well, I love watching baseball, love talking about baseball. Give us some hope, though, please. Give us some hope that there won't be a lockout, and give us, I know you're if I ask you, you're not going to give me a percentage because you don't negotiate like that, but give me some hope on why there won't be a lockout and how we can get this done, because this is honestly the first negotiation I can remember. And I was there in '94 when the strike. I got drafted that year. My first spring training was replacement players and all that whole mess. And then I was there in 2002 when we had different buses, one going to the field, one going to the airport in case there was a strike. And then we settled at the deadline. And obviously I missed the one a few years back when the lockout happened and all that, but I've been through all this before. I've been in negotiating offices in Chicago with Jerry Reinsdorf sitting across from me, and we had a bunch of players and they brought in their people and we sat there for hours before a game and talked. But give me some hope as to why this won't happen, because this is the first negotiation I can remember where everybody is saying, oh, there's going to be this, there's going to be this, it's going to be awful. Why does it have to be awful? Why can't we just get along?
Yeah, I mean, look, as I said, a lockout is something they do. It's not something we do. The only thing I could say to try and address that with you or any fans is we don't want a work stoppage. We don't want to miss games. In fact, what's interesting, people seem to not realize this. Baseball, since the '94 strike, has not missed a single game and has had far fewer work stoppages than the other sports. In fact, one of the things that trying to educate players on is, the salary cap actually guarantees more lockouts, more work stoppages, more missed games, because the history in the cap sports is once they get you in that system, the owners just keep locking the players out to get the players' percentage down. There were 4 lockouts in the NBA since 1994, 2 of which missed significant parts of the season, right? I always have hope. As you say, I think we got reasonable people on both sides, hopefully. I don't think it's in the economic interest of the owners or the game to shut down the game. They're making lots of money. I keep seeing, just today I saw something, record ratings, record attendance. They're making money. Franchise value is going up. So there's no reason why it has to happen. We will be there whenever the other side is ready to negotiate, and we will be there with creativity, and we will be there doing everything we can to try and avoid that. Is really the best I can say.
Hey everybody, be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.